The Fantasmagorium is proud to present Ghouls, Ghosts, and Goblins. Largely regarded as the studio that began Hollywood's love affair with the horror genre, Universal Pictures produced the films of the first movie monsters. In the house that the Hunchback of Notre Dame built comes a follow-up of epic proportions starring the Man with 1,000 Faces, 1925's The Phantom of the Opera starring Lon Chaney. But wait, there's more. Ever chasing their silent era blockbuster, Universal released Claude Rains as the Phantom in 1943, and tonight we do an opera double feature. My name is Scotty R37. Kat has joined me at the opera, and Steve is there inside your mind. I had to drop a little Andrew Lloyd Webber. I'm sorry.
This is the background we used, right?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. We're good.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. Yes, and in the tradition of an opera, we're doing a double feature, which means it'll seem even longer, like operas usually are.
Yes. I am looking forward to it, though. It did. Okay, so first things first. What do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about one of these as an hour and 45-minute silent era film?
Whichever you want to talk about first.
Well, I think we should go chronologically. And if we're going to start there, I do want to say hello to Finity. Thank you for being here, Finity. And Ashley Lynn. So good to see you. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Ashley, lift your hat.
Oh, thank you, Ashley. Yes, my beaver hat, or my top hat. My Mad Hatter hat.
Yes. No, you look great in it, and it's perfect for the season. It's a lot chillier here than it is where you are.
That's true. It's still 100 outside these days. It's
Yeah, I don't even know what 10 degrees Celsius is in Fahrenheit. I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure it's colder beneath the Opera of Paris or Paris. So this was originally a book. Like, let's just get into it. Let's check out the program first.
Yes, it was a book by a French author. I always
Lash Leroux?
Yes, Gaston Leroux. It is a novel. The year was
1910.
Yes, it was originally serialized from September 23rd, 1909 to January 8th, 1910, and then released as a single volume in March 1910. And that is just a beautiful painting. I don't know if you could see it on here, but you have the Phantom dressed as the Mask of the Red Death heading down the stairwell at the opera, a scene which is faithfully recreated in the movie.
Yes, in the first one, not in the second one.
Yes. This is kind of interesting because I don't remember, like when I first heard of Phantom of the Opera, I just always assumed it was an opera because I was young and I heard about the Andrew Lloyd Webber version, so I thought it was just a different take on a pre-existing opera. I didn't know it was like a book until I went into the elementary school library and they had abridged versions of lots of classic books, and I read the abridged version of Phantom. I couldn't tell you anything about what I thought about it. It was so long ago. But I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting that this is a novel that later got turned into a movie, which then got turned into an opera, which is pretty cool, actually.
Oh, the evolution, it is, and there are I checked out you have the same Blu-ray, but you have for the 1943, do you have the cooler Steelbook with Alex Ross?
I was running desperate to get a copy, and so I just bought a $5 digital copy on Vudu because I needed a copy to watch for the show. And that's how I watched it. And it was a 4K transfer. And the 4K transfer is beautiful for the 1940s. I mean, the sets look amazing. The colors are like, wow, it's like really, they did a really great job with that transfer.
And it won Best Cinematography that year, like as an Oscar?
I think so.
Yeah. Like I'm of the same mind. I was introduced to it through, like, at least through Andrew Lloyd Webber. I never looked up the book. I found out there was a movie because I had seen the famous image of Lon Chaney's mask being pulled off and that dazzling, freaky makeup. And then I knew that there were a bunch of remakes, but it's also like okay, once you're done with Dracula, do you really need to see all the other Draculas? And that's how I was at the time, and it never grabbed me. It's like the Invisible Man. It's like the originals are the ones that are iconic now to me. I don't really care about Hollow Man or Peggy from Mad Men being, terrorized by an invisible man.
That one was a good movie, though. That new one from 2020, yeah.
Haven't seen it, don't like it. But I heard it was good.
Yeah. You know
but
what
I
I
heard
liked
it was good.
I liked that it actually was built on tension and suspense, not a bunch of gory crap stuff like that, And I thought that is nice. That feels like old school horror. But
we'll get to that when we talk about the Invisible Man.
But anyway, Phantom of the Opera. The key difference between both of these films, aside from one being black and white and silent, and the other being sound and color, is that the 1925 version is gothic horror, and the 1943 version is like gothic romance. And the pacing is very different as well. The 1925 version jumps right into the story. It actually had quite a few title cards with dialogue for a silent film, which is unusual for the time. I thought
there was a succession on those too.
It was. They were just rapid fire. But I really liked the 1925 version. I thought it was paced really well. I liked that they immediately jump into the action. Like, oh, there's this crazy phantom running around. Oh, I saw him over there, and all the ballerinas following downstairs to see where it comes from, and then they think I think I see somebody. They all scream and run away back upstairs like a bunch of little girls. I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
But that was. Yeah, but like we've talked about the theatricality and how it's sort of lockdown cameras. There's not a lot of movement, and it does come off very much like you're watching a play because they didn't know how to make movies yet. They were doing their best. They were doing their damnedest. But like for me, I tried to watch it the first time and I got distracted and had to run away because I was just like, yes, I get it. It felt like those interstitial paper dolls that I would see doing stuff. And I'm just like, this isn't really grabbing me at all. But then on the second time, because I was like, okay, I promised. So I watched it and it was much more engaging. However, I felt like I was doing homework for the 43 version. I know you're a big Lon Chaney fan, but I'm much more of a Claude Rains fan.
Oh, I like Claude Rains too.
Okay. I thought it was going to be a battle of the phantoms.
Oh no, we'll be covering him in another iconic film in this series as well.
True. Well, not really. We don't get to see him.
Well, that's true. Well, at the very end of the movie.
Spoilers.
Yes, spoilers. But again, what this is something that Tom and I were talking about when we did London After Midnight is how Lon Chaney was really unique in that he didn't only design his own makeup, he actually applied it himself. He had his famous makeup kit that he brought with him everywhere. And it's like, that's really neat that they let him have like total creative control over what his characters would actually look like. And even today, that makeup just looks stunning. Like when he takes it off and the mask comes off and it's like this emaciated skull with little layers of skin or something. It's like, oh gosh, it's so grotesque, but it works really well.
Well, and I heard about that makeup, and because the reason I asked about the Blu-rays, because there's a special feature and it talks about it talks about 3 of the Phantom of the Opera cinematic films under Universal. And it says, it talks about his makeup and how it was like putty for his cheekbones. And he had an exaggerated false forehead to make his head look taller. And there was actually there was wire in his mouth to make it go wider, false teeth that was applied with hooks, and there was a wire that went into his nose and pulled it up for the death's head nose or the lack of the nose. And there's actual like photographs where you can see it going up. And apparently when they were filming that, there was quite a bit of bleeding.
Oh yeah, I imagine.
Well, yeah, but that's still startling. We're talking about I know that they would just do it, and these guys are like chewing cigarettes and smoking tobacco, but and I know that it's a different era. I'm watching horses go around in the 25 one and going like, who got trampled? So like, there's a lot more danger, a lot less safety. But I was just, it was interesting to me and astonishing to me that not only was that something that he did, but he chose to do it for himself. And then as he was doing the performance, he was like, no, it's fine. It's incredible.
It is quite. And here's Ernesto's here. He says a successful Clayface of his time. Very much so.
I'm sure that's what he was based upon. Yeah.
Yeah, because like that's a real excellent disguises there that he's capable of doing. See, Ernesto also says, Mr. Sheffield, the only thing that Andrew Lloyd Webber has that you don't is a middle name. Right. Okay. Oh, Ashley's been to the opera as well. She says, I've been to the opera a few times. They're so emotional and deep sometimes. I have never been to an opera, actually.
I've never been to an opera.
I remember my dad and my sister went to the Andrew Lloyd Webber Phantom of the Opera like 20 years ago in San Francisco, but I didn't get to go. Yes, it's awesome. I feel like I would want to go tap dancing if I was wearing it. I like it. And dear Rao, it's that time again.
Raoul? Is he referring to Raoul?
I believe so.
Okay, good.
But another key difference between
Lemon.
Oh, Lemon's here. Hello, Lemon. Another key difference is that in this version, 1925, the Phantom is a true psychopath, and he's definitely the villain of the story. He's, obsessively stalking this one singer. He's willing to kill people and maim them just to make sure this one singer gets up there. He thinks he's entitled to kidnap her and take her to the dungeon to live with him forever. And, oh, you promised me. And it's like, well, you blackmailed her into accepting your offer to live with you in the dungeon just so she could get permission to go back up to the surface to, I guess, say her goodbyes or whatever. And then he gets genuinely upset when she tries to leave him again. And it's like, well, what did you think was going to happen? But again, he's a psychopath.
Well, and apparently in the book there is reference, and it does talk about it in 25, not so much in 43, but in 25 they say that Christine's father had always promised that he would give the gift of song to her or something, the gift of music. And it is somewhat implied, or at least it has been run with in subsequent screenplays, that the Phantom could have been Christine's father.
Yes.
Which is an interesting way to look at it. Like, they had to take that out of the 43 version.
Yeah, because the 43 version completely reinvents it.
Yes.
But
we're talking about 25. We're talking about the psychopath. But how many people does he kill in the first one? Like, let's get down to brass tacks. We're watching these in October. It's supposed to be a horror movie. This one's a little bit more frightening in both. More in the 43 because more people die. But how many people does he kill in the 25 original?
Let's see. He kills several people when he knocks down the chandelier.
Chandelier doesn't count. That was like flipping the Monopoly board.
It totally counts. He unscrewed it and cut it loose with a hacksaw to kill people.
It was startling in both times. I was like, oh, they better kill a bunch of people with a chandelier in the 43 version. I'm glad they did. We
do get a backstory that he escaped Devil's Island, and that the famous French penal colony off Brazil, and that he brought a lot of the same torture devices from there into the dungeons beneath the opera house.
Yeah,
and he's
criminally insane.
Yeah, he's totally insane, and he tries to use these devices against our two heroes, who come to save Christine in the end.
Yeah. Like, he kills Charles.
Yeah.
Right off the hop. But then he sort of peters out until he kills everybody with the chandelier.
Yeah, that's true, because he does kill the brother of the... He's like, oh, he killed my brother, I'm going to get revenge. And then he kills him, too. Yes. And then he knocks down the chandelier, kills those people, and then later on he tries to kill the two guys coming to rescue Christine, but he doesn't succeed.
Right. No, he doesn't. Because he does like a very elaborate man with the golden gun sort of Hall of Mirrors way of killing people. It is like, I was picking apart a bunch of little things, and as we get to them, I'll try and... I bet this is where that came from. Oh, the whole thing of getting into the catacombs through the mirror. I was like, oh, is this kind of like Indiana Jones pushing into the statue and then going down into the Temple of Doom? Like, there's so much stuff here that is visually iconic, and all these guys would have done their history. And so, like, their cinematic history, I'm wondering if that played a part in that.
Perhaps, because it is very, doom and gloom down there, even though he did deck out this one room for her. He's like, oh, I designed this to your liking. You'll love it. You'll stay here and you'll be great. And the one thing he wants her to promise him is not to take off his mask, thinking that she'll be just totally fine with him. But only when she takes off the mask and sees his face does he totally rebel and get extremely angry with her.
Well, he only had one rule, and it's about consent.
Yeah. Which is ironic considering that he's kidnapped her and is forcing her to stay down here against her will.
You keep saying this like she doesn't want to. Christine is absolutely into it. She's like, I'm leaving you, Raoul. This haunting voice from behind a mirror who is pretending to be an angel working on behalf of her father.
Oh, yeah, she's naive because she thinks it's a spirit angel that's helping her get all these skills. But she doesn't necessarily want to live in the dungeon with him forever.
Well, but the only reason that happens is because they messed with his plan. He was just like, make Christine the star and I'll leave everybody alone. Both times.
Yeah.
So, I don't... But yes, no, there does come a point when Christine is like, no, please, don't steal me away. And then he's like, nope, it's too late. I tried to make you a star up there, so now you're going to be a star down here.
Yeah.
But it is... I don't know. First guy's a psychopath. Second guy's a little bit more... He's almost like Two-Face.
Yeah, the first guy has a
very much
session with her.
Well, he just... If it is the same sort of acoustics and whatnot that were going on in and I'm assuming a lot of this is coming from the books as well, is that if he can hear, the reason that he's down there is because he can hear the opera from the catacombs.
Yeah.
And he fell in love even with her voice. And he's like, make that girl a star.
Yeah. But he was also, again, providing her tips and stuff and guiding her. And she was just naive enough to think it was some disembodied spirit of some kind. But he was actually giving her tips because he wanted her to be the lead.
Yeah.
And he thinks that she should be grateful and come live with him forever.
Then a lot more of it takes place in the underground in 25. Like the beneath.
It's significant.
And it's incredible, the sets that they have. And again, I'm making fun of the mirrors and stuff, but there's like a canal. Mm. And they built all that in Universal City in California.
Oh, that's somebody else he kills. He drowns the guy's brother in the canal.
That's true. Thank God we found another one.
Yes, he commits another murder. But yeah, the design of that was like really neat and very intricate. And even some of the torture devices he had were pretty elaborate. And it's like, oh wow, you really are kind of fuckered in the head there to be doing all of this.
But it was cool. Remember, he has that like monkey that just does this, and it like lets him know when there are intruders and such. I thought that was clever. So he was, there was a little bit of a welcome to my castle, even though it's in the basement of the place that you know so well at that point. Yeah. And there are like it's a precursor to when we saw the stairs in, like, was it The Mummy or Dracula? It was in black and white, and it was recent. Dracula. Not as impressive, but definitely like an inspiration precursor. But does it count if it's the same studio?
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah.
I just remember the iconic image of him dressed as the Mask of the Red Death going around through the party, or the masquerade ball that Christine agrees to meet her boyfriend at, or her suitor, I should say, because her suitor keeps trying to get her to give up the opera and marry him, and she's like, oh, but the spirit is telling me I'm going to be great, I'm going to stay here. And he's obviously very suspicious as to what's going on, because he's like, well, obviously it's not a spirit, it's like somebody's telling you these things. And so once the Phantom gets her to send a letter that I can never see you again, he's obviously even more perturbed by that. And so when she does eventually rendezvous with him again and tells him everything, you have that great shot of the Phantom standing on top of the statue outside and on the rooftop, and Christina are like talking, and they're like, oh, I need you to save me from the Phantom and all that kind of stuff. And he's sitting up there listening to how she's planning to betray him. and he's just really taken by it.
Well, he's like a gargoyle, and it's really cool. And they do, and this is, it doesn't matter. If first of all, if you haven't heard of Phantom of the Opera, and we're like giving away beats, I would like to remind you that there is no dialogue, and I'm not thinking that, Kat, you have quoted a single title card.
No, there was quite a lot of silent dialogue through the title cards.
Yeah,
but,
of course. Did you ever get to the point where you were like reading lips?
No.
I did. I was just like, I wonder if these match up, and they did sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Like sometimes the dialogue would be broken up from like, and it would just go right in the middle of the title card.
I did find it funny that in the beginning when the previous owners of the opera are selling it, and they're like, yeah, there's this phantom. You might want to beware. I'm like, you might not want to tell them that because it'll affect the sale price.
No, but they tell them after.
Yeah, after they sell it, and then it's like,
yeah. Oh, by the way, there's a ghost.
Yeah, it's like, we could just venture into the catacombs and see what's going on here instead of just tolerating this, because ghosts tend to not be able to interact with the physical realm.
Yeah, but it was Gaslight era. It was Gothic era. Like it was a matter of they still believe in spirits and whatnot.
Yeah.
So their superstition was on high. I want to say hi to Ash D. Speaking of high. Hey, Ash D. And also, shout out to Taylor Swift, greater than Disney, Star Wars, and MCU, and Doctor Who. Good to see you, Matt G. Oh, what were we talking? Oh, yeah, Daniel's Hot Topics is here. Daniel, you love Phantom of the Opera 1925? Dude, you are one of 3 of us here that have seen it. But I was what the reason that I was bringing it up in terms of it being a silent film is because nothing can spoil this movie for you. You honestly do have to see it for yourself to understand what it's like to emote and perform without the use of dialogue. I found it fascinating. Even the music that they play, and Kat and I both watch the same version. It's free on YouTube. And it's the hour and 46-minute version. I don't even think it's because apparently they had a 2-color Technicolor release of it at the time.
Yeah.
And this was not that.
No.
It was good quality. It was like, it said it was Blu-ray quality, but it was as good as it was going to get in terms of a transfer. Unless there's a better one. Is there like a, registry of American cinema kind of thing?
Not that I know of. But yeah, I also noted that there wasn't too much overacting in it either, like you have in a lot of silent films. A lot of it was pretty on point. And I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting,
Yes.
So that was...
No, and it wasn't. I was expecting like Valentino kind of shit.
Right.
And it wasn't that. Which I was very... Like, a lot of people looked like Valentino, but it didn't come off as that. A lot of mustaches before 1950.
Mm.
Like, and thin.
Ernesto says, we're right. Lon Chaney is the inspiration for Clayface. Oh, interesting. Oh, Andy confirms he said, no, not Raoul Rao, Kryptonian god. I was making a funny unsuccessfully. All right.
I don't know that much about Kryptonian deities.
And so I think that this one works, I think, because it is a horror film. It is like a genuine psychopath. And it's like, okay, I actually find myself invested in the story. And I want to see the Phantom like get his by the end, which he does. The classic thing where we have everybody, rally up their torches and pitchforks and go storming into the catacombs. I'm like, that's what you should have done a long time ago when you first heard the ghost messing with things. Because he's since, murdered a bunch of people when he crashed the chandelier and tried to murder some of the other people.
Like 50, probably like 40.
Maybe, because the chandelier did seem pretty big.
It did. And they were not like, because there was still the caging of it as well. So it's not like it smashed and it was just glass.
Yeah.
Not that would do a lot of difference. You'd probably still die.
Yeah.
Ash D, I didn't want to disparage. I didn't realize. Watched it the other night when I saw that this was the topic and watched them both. The silent one was good, though it quite not my kind of tea, but I still liked it. Yeah. But it makes me more open. Like I kind of want to see Humpback of Notre Dame now. Humpback people. Ash D says, I agree, Kat. I did like that it wasn't overhyped. But yeah, and overhyped, I think you mean in the performances? Like it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't Valentino. I did like the bit towards at the end when the angry mob have chased the Phantom out of the catacombs and he's in the streets. And it looks like he's like about to throw a grenade or something. And everybody recoils.
Oh, yeah.
He pulls that. I'm like, does he have like a grenade or something? And then it doesn't end up being anything as he gets
nothing.
Yeah, he's just beaten to death and dumped in the river.
Yes.
But this is not like a Frankenstein story where you're supposed to feel bad for the monster because this guy is, again, pretty evil. And I don't remember if they gave us. They said he was perhaps a war veteran before then when he was crazy and then sent off to Devil's Island afterwards. So was his face the result of the war? Maybe like mustard gas or something. I mean, who knows? They don't really explain it, but so I did like that. It is. I do like the story as presented as a horror, gothic horror, and an actual monster rather than gothic romance. And the pacing I thought was pretty well for an hour 45-minute silent film. It went by pretty decently. I thought, oh, that's pretty good.
That was your impression.
Yeah, it was pretty. I liked it.
I still took breaks. Mm-hmm. And I know I'm the guy who loves the theater, and I don't want it. I want 100% of my attention there. And I did my best, and I had to, because every time there was a flashcard, I had to read. And then it was like, oh, okay. And I got into the rhythm of it. But when I saw, because there were still act breaks to a certain extent, which I guess would have transferred over from theater. So I kind of knew when to go, hit pause, grab a smoke, have lunch, come back, and let's get to it again. But the fact that it is so, I find, it's 15 minutes longer than 43, mm-hmm. Which, all right, I guess you need more time for, well, there's more story to it too, in terms of the trapping and going through the catacombs a little bit more. Plus, they do change the characters. I know one is he doesn't really come off as an inspector, but he's with an organization. He has a uniform,
special branch or something, and the reason he's been alerted is because the Phantom was a prisoner at Devil's Island, and they knew that he escaped. So that was something they kept tabs on, thinking he'd come back to France.
Yeah, but he was like a red herring in the beginning of it. He was like a guy who would show up, and then it was like, maybe he's the Phantom, and it's like, no, I'm trying to catch the Phantom. He was like the Van Helsing. Yeah,
I kind of like that. They kind of tease, what's this guy about? Because even Raoul sees this guy, like, well, what are you doing here? And then you have, the other sewer workers like Simon, and they're all, when Raoul decides to team up with them to go into the catacombs to rescue Christine. Christine, played by Mary Philbin, of course, another great star.
Great grandmother of Regis.
See, any other, and a lot of people uncredited because they didn't credit that many cast members back in those days. And apparently, there were scenes.
I'm sorry?
There were apparently deleted scenes because there's a bunch of cast members listed here for scenes cut from the movie.
Well, one of the things that I found interesting about that is they would put, was it the cast member or the character on the title cards at the beginning? It was a name or it was a tag so that everyone knew who, and then at the end when they list the cast, they say, title card credits were included at the request of yada blah blah yada. I didn't, and it was but it was Am I supposed to think that that's who's talking now, or are you describing them? I didn't know. Like, I did have to switch my brain around to actually figure out how to work silent film. Now,
Yeah.
you've been to film school, so
Yeah.
you knew better than me. This was my film school.
Mm.
It took an afternoon. But no, but it was like I'm not over the moon for it. I don't know if I'll ever revisit it. Maybe I'll watch the shorter version, see the like just have it on, but I'm not going to be as invested in the original. But I would say, like, just to get a sense of what it was like to watch a silent movie. Maybe this isn't the one to start with, but it's not a bad one.
No, I think it's a pretty good one.
Yeah. Like, I don't even know how long Hunchback is.
I don't remember.
That's okay. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
But it's just, that's when I flippantly say that this is almost like a film school. It's like, how many, I don't know. Maybe I'm underestimating general audiences by being like, well, how many silent movies have you watched? I've watched one. So
I've seen many. I've seen dozens of silent films, but
okay.
I do agree that
How does this rank? How does this rank?
Well, I think this one ranks reasonably high because, again, I think it's paced very well. I like that it jumps right into the story, doesn't spend a bunch of time introducing various characters or plot threads. I do notice that it is filmed almost like a stage play. The way everybody's framed in the shots and how the camera never really does a 360 or turn it around. It's always, it feels like they're shooting a stage play. What's that?
Hunchback of Notre Dame is 2 hours and 15 minutes long.
The 1923?
Yeah.
No, okay, I believe it.
Would you watch a 2 hour and 15 minute silent movie?
I would watch the 9-hour cut of Greed if it was available.
Like, I want to, you know what? And the thing is, I've never even seen Metropolis. So
Metropolis, I felt, was a bit harder to get through because the visuals are striking, but there's not much dialogue. It's very symbolic in terms of the story that it's telling, but it's told mostly through visuals. And
okay.
And so you're kind of watching it, and it does, to me, I felt the runtime on that one because that's like 3 hours, I believe. Or
oh shit.
Or 2.5. There's multiple versions of that one as well.
Yeah.
But that one I felt the runtime a bit more because that one didn't really have, again, as much dialogue. It's the dystopic society of all the working class slaving for the people of the upper class, and the robot is the false prophet. It's like, okay, it's very symbolic, very good story. But as a silent film execution, it just felt very slow, and I felt the runtime a lot more. Here I didn't feel it as much, partly because there was just so many title cards to keep you like focusing on what the characters were saying and what was going on. And I thought it was kind of a fun story, like horror-wise, that I was getting invested in. And I like, again, that the Phantom is, a psychopath. He's not some sympathetic character like Frankenstein's creature, or like the guy that we'll talk about in the 1943 version. Like, this is all-out horror.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that it is going for more horror. I think that the way that it's shot, obviously, it's black and white, and it's like designed by a Frenchman, which I always think is scary. Apparently, the guy who did all the art design couldn't speak a lick of English, but he just drew shit. Never saw the movie until like late in his career. No, I think it looks scarier. I think you're right. It looks more of its era, like Gothicer. Yes. And it was, I think it looks scarier. However, I think that the content of the movie is not as frightening as the story of a man whose mind snaps after, like, it's almost kind of like a 1 hour photo thing where it's like he's been paying attention to this girl for so long, paying all his money to put her through all these expensive singing lessons, trying to do best by her, too timid to say anything, which is creepy. I get it. It's stalking. But when he finds out that he's been wronged, even though he considers himself to be all that altruistic, he gets he snaps. Someone splashes acid in his face.
Now we're talking
and
about the 1943 version.
I figured it was a good time to transition.
Yeah.
And then he kills a person, runs away, and plots his revenge. I don't even know for how long. How long does it take him to start his revenge plot a-kickin'?
I'm not sure. I just know I thought it was ridiculously slow that it took 30 minutes to provide an origin story for the Phantom in the 1943 version.
I thought it made a very pathetic character. A very pathetic character who was prone to psychological weakness. He broke, and then he turned to murder. He was on the verge of greatness had he only just restrained himself.
Yeah, because for those who don't know, the story of the 1943 version is that this guy got fired from the opera because of, financial
arthritis.
Yeah, arthritis, because he couldn't play his left hand. The fingers were starting to seize up, so he couldn't play the violin anymore. He had been supporting other artists for the opera, so money was a little tight. He'd also been supporting Christine by paying for singing lessons and all that kind of stuff. He's just a very altruistic guy. He then decided to make some money by writing his own concerto, and he goes to sell it to this guy, and he's like, "Oh, well, here and see if we like it or not." He comes back to visit him to see if he likes it, and he hears somebody playing it upstairs and thinks, strangely, he irrationally immediately jumps to the conclusion that they stole it rather than assuming that, oh, maybe they're playing it to see if they like the sound of it. He just immediately, you must have stolen it, and just strangles the guy.
Well, I think you're being a little, this is where I thought we were going to be a little tete-a-tete, as the French would say. But that means something different in French. No. So he gets fired. His landlady shakes him down for rent money and says, okay, I need money or you're out. Like, that's it. We're done. Then he takes his concerto that he had taken to the teacher of Christine. And he's like, well, I'll give you my concerto if you'll just keep teaching her. And he's like, I don't want your fucking concerto. So he's like, okay, I'll sell it. And I know who'll buy it. These guys, they'll buy anything. And they'll give me a good advance on it too. Which, you know what? You've only got the one concerto. Like, how long is this going to last you financially? So anyway, he goes and he's there first thing in the morning. He gives it to the clerk. We don't see this part. He gives it to the clerk and he waits. And he's like, I've been here all day. You're about to close. Have you seen did you listen to my concerto? And the guy who he gave it to says, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. So then he's like, what? That's ridiculous. I gave it to you to give to those guys so that they would look at it so you would give me money. And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, little man. So then he walks away, and then he sneaks in, and it's like, what are you doing back here? And it's the guy, it's the partner of the actual musician, or the actual guy who's an artistic, like he's the A&R guy. The other guy's just the business guy. He does posters and flirts with the talent. So he's hanging out there with the chick, and he's like, hit the bricks, Charlie. I didn't see your damn concerto. And it's like, well, it should be here. And so he starts rummaging around, and then the chick comes over and says, you're supposed to leave. And he's like, well, where is it? Where? I brought it here. I gave it to him. You have it. It must be here. And the guy says, I don't know what the shit you're on, son, but get the fuck out of my office. And at that moment, the concerto starts playing in the other room. Of course he's been stonewalled by everyone saying, we don't have your shit. And he's like, that is my shit, motherfucker. He snaps, he goes Hulk mode, and he launches at him and kills him. So rightfully so, when you meet a murderer and you have a tub full of acid, you throw it in their face. He runs away. He's very good at it. And he gets into the thing. So don't say he's like, oh, he comes to the wrong conclusions. Fuck off. That's not true.
No, he didn't steal it though.
No, but if you were presented with no, we don't have it. We've never heard of it. You are like stupid. Get out.
But to your point, we
And then
don't.
it starts playing in the other room.
To your point, we never see him give it to that guy, so he probably didn't give it to the same guy.
Well, I'm on the Phantom side on this one, Kat.
I just felt that 30 minutes of origin story was just not necessary, and it's like, okay,
I disagree with you wholeheartedly.
He takes
You don't
off.
understand film.
He takes off and decides to go haunt the opera by being, the Phantom of the Opera. And this version has a lot of gratuitous, unnecessary opera sequences with people who can't sing very well, just going on and on. It's like, can we get back to the story, maybe?
See, that's the thing that I hated about 1925 is that I was like, you know what this opera is missing? Music.
Well, they had
Now, I don't want your interstitial score, and I get your music directors at different theaters, but whatever. I like that this was a pageant.
Yeah, it unnecessary. It just killed the pace every time they did that, because it stopped the story dead to just have these gratuitous opera sequences, and because it's not a horror story, it's not really scary, and it's kind of like a romance because he's in love with her because he's been sponsoring her for a long time and paying for her lessons and everything like that.
It is a romance, but it's in there in a story.
It's
an aspect of it.
Right, and some of the same things happen. Like he does cut the chandelier down again because he makes the same threat. He also kills the other singer for refusing to, back down when she's like, "I'm not going to step aside for this lady." And she even says, "Oh, I'm going to sue you because you're the ones who made me sick and gave me food poisoning that night." And I won't sue you if you agree to give me the lead back. And they're like, "Well, we can't prove this." And before the legal issue gets resolved, she gets murdered by the Phantom along with her maid. Off screen.
You say that nonchalantly, like it's like, and so then.
Well, because it didn't feel like a horror aspect to it. It's like, okay, I get it, but it didn't have that gothic horror type vibe. It's because again, you don't see what happens. It's just like the next day we find out, we hear the scream, and they all run up to see what's going on, and they look in and they step back out. They're like, "Oh, she's dead. They've been murdered." And the response wasn't as chaotic as I would have thought it would be. That one of your lead divas has just been murdered inside the opera house, but
well, they make mention of it. Did you watch the film?
Of course I watched it. I didn't like it.
No, I know, and I did. That's why, you know what? Sometimes it's the best conversations. No, they lock down the whole opera. They say, "What do you think you're doing here? This is as bad as a what are they, like a pool hall?" Or they say something, and it's like, this is as bad as a racetrack.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of funny. I thought that was like a Marx Brothers thing.
Yeah.
But no, and I understand, and if it is like, and let's check in with the chat because they like Ash D does say it was like Gone with the Wind vibes.
Yeah, it did definitely feel that way in terms of the design.
I do agree. I didn't love the musical acts in this one either. I found out that the lady who played Christine, she was like 18 or 19 years old, and that was her actual singing voice. I was kind of taken by it. The guy who plays the baritone, I forget his name. It's French. But he was who?
Anatoly, I think.
Maripol?
Or Anatoly, I think.
Anatoly, yes. He was an actual baritone, so he was doing all his singing as well. Yeah. Plus, I do get what you're saying in terms of, like, it did win cinematography, but it did win cinematography because it was in Technicolor, and the complications of doing Technicolor at that time, a lot of, as cameras are, a lot of reflections with a lot of different films going through it.
Yeah.
So, like, it needed to be very bright. Just like the aperture on it had to be very open to be able to collect all the light, to be able to make the color work. And they wanted to release it in color because they had actually done 25. I think they released 1925 in 1930 and they dubbed it.
Yeah, they did a 1929 reissue. Yeah.
Yeah. But then also Lon Chaney would not reprise the role for the dubbed one.
Yeah.
So no, I understand where you're coming from because it doesn't look like the gothic horror. And yeah, Ashty does, yeah. He didn't get paid, and that's why he was upset. That's exactly what I was expressing. And I'm glad. And I thought, no, apparently, because it is a misunderstanding. It's a partnership. And the good partner wanted it. The bad partner was a dickhead.
And Fritz Lubitsch was visiting, the famous Hungarian composer, and he was playing it to see what it sounded like.
Yes, and the guy it was Liszt, wasn't it? Liszt?
Yeah, Liszt. I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Yeah, no, fair enough. But it is an actual famous composer, and so, or at least it was referenced as being so. And yeah, he's like, no, this is really, really good. And he's like, okay, then we'll buy it. And that's when the murder happens. It's all a matter of, like, if he had composed himself, but I did understand why he snapped.
Ash D says, then you had the awkward love triangle between the two dudes the whole time, which made it more campy than horror feel. Yeah, there was a bit of comedy, love triangle farce going on in the movie with them competing for Christine, and that which continues all the way through the end of the film.
Yes, but also that was the one, like, the movie, once you get the backstory, or actually it's interspersed with the introduction of Eric when he's like, I have arthritis. And it's like, all right. And then, but before that, Christine goes in because she gets in shit because Raoul is there. And it's like, who is that dude hanging out in the wings of the theater? You didn't do your curtain call. And she's like, I'm fond of him. And it's like, well, you have two choices. You can have a normal life or you can live at the opera.
Yeah.
Like, you can have a world of the arts. I don't even know why they call it the normal life. So called. He doesn't do the finger quotes.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, when confronted with this love triangle, she basically says, fuck you to both of them. And she leaves to be with her adoring fans, which I was just like, this is being played as cute. I find this very, like, almost Black Swan.
Yeah.
Just like washing into it. Like, again, it's depends on where you find your horror.
Yeah, and then the two guys kind of get over it immediately and decide to go out to dinner together. As Ash D says, like at the end, instead of leaving on that serious note, the guys are fighting to go through the door via very Popeye and Bruno feel.
Yeah. I thought that was an interesting choice, but also apparently part of the production of it, they like not had to, but there was a prevailing interest in sort of bringing in more levity because it was 1943 and there was a World War.
Yeah. I also didn't care for the costume that the Phantom wore through much of the movie. It didn't stand out.
Oh.
Again, all these opera costumes, which look really beautiful and all of that, and his is very plain and very like the gray coat or the gray cloak with the simple buttoned waist trousers. It didn't look as great as Lon Chaney's outfit.
No, I didn't. No, I preferred Claude Rains' outfit. Yeah. I liked the sort of almost the Phantom, like the pew pew Phantom, the pulp hero. I thought that that's what he kind of looked like. Maybe that's where they sort of adopted it. It's from they had that. I think it was a comic book back then. I know it was a radio play.
Mm-hmm.
They might have made those serials in the late 30s, early 40s.
Mm. And then when he takes her down into the catacombs, the sets weren't as impressive or detailed as the ones from the 1925 version. It was a bit simpler because he doesn't really have a big lair. He kind of has this little. It's next to the canal where one of the little boats would come up, and he has like the loading platform there where he has his piano, and he sits there playing the piano and asks her to sing, and she decides to sing thinking it'll catch the attention of the two guys coming to save her, which it does. And so they rush down to save her. And what was it that causes the cave-in again?
One bullet.
That's right. Oh, that's right, because the guy raises the gun to shoot the Phantom, and the other guy stops him. Like
for some reason.
Which I don't get why he stopped him, because they're both there to save her from him. But he stops him like this, and the gun goes off and hits one of the crossbeams or whatever, and it causes this cave-in to begin. And I should mention that when he gets unmasked in this one,
yes,
laziest design I've seen for this. Because it looked like his whole face got it pretty good, and it's kind of like this very simple patch around here. It didn't look as grotesque. Not nearly as impressive as what Lon Chaney did. But then again, they weren't going for horror. They were going for gothic romance. So,
sure.
No, I thought it looked bad. Well, compared to Lon Chaney, I thought, they kind of half-assed it. Or quarter-assed it. For the design of his face when the mask comes off. I was not impressed.
The way I would put it, and this is off the cuff, the way I would put it is that I think that 1943 Phantom of the Opera is, it could be seen as being like the Green Goblin of what you could do with makeup. The Green Goblin from Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man. No one's happy with the Power Rangers helmet. Right. They would have liked to see an animatronic face. And again, that's left up to the ages. But I think what they focused on at the time was, instead of trying to top the original's makeup, which they weren't going to be able to do because they got Claude Rains, and he was very sensitive about putting on a bunch of makeup. He didn't want to get typecast as another one of the monsters. He didn't want to be Frankenstein. And so that was like a career choice for him. And he was like, you can do a burn. And it had to be like, what do they call it? Like muted. It had to be reduced because he didn't want it to be too much. And I think that they did great work around his eye to make it look a bit droopy, but they didn't go like full artificial eyeball. They could have done more with it. But again, because I'm a fan of the movie and I like the motivation, I think that the acting of Claude Rains and the use of his voice, and even the use of his lower jaw seen through that prop mask, it worked for me because of the charisma as opposed to the grotesqueness.
You see, that's a situation where if the actor doesn't really want to portray the character as written, then, because the book has a very detailed description of what the guy looks like under the mask. Yes. And if you don't want to play that because you're feared of typecast, then maybe you shouldn't be playing the character.
Well, but this is also, they paid him because the studio needed a name, and Claude Rains had made a name. He was already a successful from The Invisible Man.
Well, speaking of which, Creighton Chaney, better known by his stage name Lon Chaney Jr., was surprised and upset that they didn't ask him to do it, because he followed in his father's footsteps of designing his own makeup and putting it on, like when he played the Wolfman and things like that. But they apparently didn't even think of that.
No, it's not that they didn't think of it. Apparently, he was never considered.
That's what I mean. They probably didn't think of him then because they didn't consider it because they didn't think of it or something.
I don't know. I know who Frank Sinatra is, and I never went to a Frank Sinatra Jr. concert when he was alive.
Yeah. But
so it's just a matter of following in the footsteps. It doesn't.
Right, but Lon Chaney Jr. was also in a lot more movies than his dad was, playing monsters.
Yes,
he was around a lot.
Maybe I'm being dismissive of Lon Chaney Jr. and I shouldn't be.
Yeah, because Lon Chaney Sr., for those who don't know, died in 1930, aged 47, from lung infection that was exacerbated by the probably asbestos crap they used for fake snow back in the day. DJ Play.
Yeah, but they were all smoking. Cancer's there. DJ Play Nice. Hey, y'all, be safe. Have fun. Take care of your crew and
wow.
Good to see you.
And yeah, Claude Rains' voice is okay. I just didn't. I think he was significantly better in the other role that we're going to be reviewing of his in this series.
Who's this?
Thank you, DJ Play Nice. Claude Rains.
Oh yeah, well, but that's a mastery of special effects, as most Invisible
because I
Man
think
movies are.
when we get to that movie, I think Claude Rains' voice and his personal physical performance comes through a lot. Ironically, even though he's an Invisible Man, but here,
Yes.
I thought it was all right. I mean, everything, because I got that they were clearly going for a more gothic romance, and like you mentioned, they added levity because of the war, and so it had a very different type of tone. But I just felt that every time they did the opera segments, like I get that you have to have some of it in there because it is, oh, of course, it's a sound movie. You have to take advantage of the opera. I just felt there were too many of those sequences that went on too long, and every time it happened, it just stopped the movie dead for me.
But I thought that turned it into a silent movie for Claude Rains because you would see his machinations. He was doing stuff in the background while there was an opera going on, and it was nice to have an opera in a movie called Phantom of the fucking Opera.
Well, no, but a lot of the segments you don't really see him either. A lot of it is just filming, showing you what's going on the stage.
Poisoning people. He's cutting down chandeliers.
Yeah, like see, I told you that was vicious. You didn't think it was vicious when Lon Chaney did it.
No, and I said it. No, but I'm just speaking in terms of, we both agreed at the beginning of this podcast that killing like at least 30 to 40 people with a giant chandelier is mass murder. We agreed to that.
Yeah.
Good.
It's just I like that the original one, they don't try and make anything sympathetic about the Phantom. This one they do. And maybe they could have pushed the idea further that when Christine finds out that he was the one who actually has been paying for all her lessons before before his accident, that maybe he would try and guilt trip her a bit more into, hey, I created you. You know, you should stay here with me. Funny thing that you mentioned that, Daniel's Hot Topics. He says, this movie didn't get a sequel, I bet. Actually, it did get a sequel. It was called The Climax, but
yeah,
they had to change it at the last minute to not technically be a sequel because they couldn't get certain people back for it. Because at the end of this movie, it's left ambiguous whether the Phantom dies or not. Because the cave-in happens, and you see the mask broken on his side, but you don't see him. So he might theoretically have survived the cave-in.
Like by that point, Claude Rains had been signed to Warner Brothers. He was, because this was only filmed at Universal because it was in a break between Warner Brothers and Warner Brothers, and so he did this movie. Then when he went back to Warner Brothers, Universal couldn't get him. They got the lady who played Christine, but they couldn't get the guy who played Anatole. He wasn't, or Anoli, or Cannoli. Anolis. And
had problems getting Claude Rains availability. He was...
I just said, that's where I went off for first. Claude Rains.
Oh, Claude Rains, yeah. They also said they had story problems, but they didn't specify what they were. But yeah, it ended up being released as its own standalone film.
With? Who starred?
Let me double check.
Boris Karloff.
Oh, that's right.
Boris Karloff, and they did get back Christine. And then there was a young man named Bay.
That's right. He was the original choice for the Phantom, Boris Karloff. Yeah.
And so, yeah. No, apparently it was, and it also, it brought everybody back to the Universal studio of Phantom of the Opera. And Phantom of the opera has been used a lot. Like, it is a very, very versatile set, especially during the war when there was limits in resources for production, as you would think not to do. So, but the opera itself is a marvel. And so there's been a lot of stuff that shows. Apparently even Psycho was filmed in that, I don't want to say studio, but I guess. What do they call the James Bond hangar there that they film everything in? Is it a studio? Is that a studio? A sound stage?
That's the 007 stage.
Right. So there is a Phantom of the Opera sound stage.
Yeah.
So, Daniel, in answer to your question, it didn't have a sequel, but it did have a follow-up, as both of us have said. How are you feeling there? I'm the smoker.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. Little hydration. But all in all, is there anything else you wanted to add about the 43 or the 25?
Well, I mean, I don't picture myself watching the 43 version again. But
I absolutely am, with the audio commentary.
Oh, there's an audio commentary. Who does it?
A historian.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just a historian.
Yeah. But I don't.
I'll see if I can find the link to the special features, because it does introduce the idea of, or not the idea, is that they made a 1967 version. And it was Herbert Lom who played the Phantom. And Michael Goff played his rival. And so there was another remake, and there were subsequent remakes. You got the Andrew Lloyd Webber, and then they did the one with Emmy Rossum and Jerry Butler. Isn't that a thing?
Yeah, that was in 2004 by Joel.
Is that a Universal picture?
I don't know, but Joel Schumacher made that one.
Huh, that'd be interesting. But that obviously is going to be much more. If you really didn't like the musical endeavors, then you're probably not going to like the Jerry Butler one.
It was distributed by Warner Brothers, but made by a bunch of independent production companies.
Huh. Well, that's interesting, Ash D. That's your favorite one. Jerry Butler, Emmy Rossum. Huh. Did they make another one? I
don't know.
Yeah, that's where I sort of fell off. Once Jerry Butler got off, maybe there's one with the guy who played Lestat in the Vampire Queen or whatever that was called. What's his name? He was the guy who was supposed to be.
Well, there was
supposed to be Aragorn.
Yeah, Stuart Townsend.
Yeah, I thought there was one with him.
Maybe. I think there was another one in the 60s as well.
Yeah, that's the one with Herbert Lom and the Goff fella. Everyone's favorite Alfred.
Oh, okay.
That's what I understand. It was. I think it's available from a Universal Pictures home video, but it might have been a Hammer. It might have been a Hammer picture. But I'm sorry, I'm the one going on about Phantom of the Opera 43, and you keep wanting to talk about 25.
No, we already talked about 25.
We talked about both. Is there anything you want to add? I already asked that, and you started to, and then I interrupted.
Well, we need ratings.
Yeah. Pumpkins. It's pumpkins. Jack-o'-lanterns. We decided on it. It was going to be that gourd. 25. Again, I got to look at it through the prism of seeing it as a silent movie in 25, and then also seeing it as a silent movie in 24. Pick your century. I would give it a 6 both ways. I would give it a 7. No, that's some gross ass makeup. I would give it an 8 in 25. I'm giving it a 6 in 24.
I give it an 8. Because
across the board.
Yeah, I think it's engaging for a silent film. Because a lot of silent films, it's just assuming you're not watching like Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin, a lot of the dramas which go on for a long time could be really trying to get through. Mm-hmm. This one was not an issue for me. I thought I was engaged by the story, and I did thoroughly enjoy it.
All right.
And then, what about the 1943 version?
I give it an 8 across the board.
What did I give it? I think I gave it a 4 or 5. I was just really bored by it, so.
I like the pageantry. I like the acting. And after having watched 1 hour and 45 minutes of people not talking with music that wasn't associated with the images that were flashing on screen, I was bathed in the gold of a plot that was illustrated to me through writing, provided the information provided to me through dialogue. I love dialogue. Obviously, I love the sound of my voice. I love the sound of your voice. I love the sound of everyone's voices, as long as mine interrupts. And no, this was just much more character driven because I connected far more with the characters. Fucking love the 43. I will watch that one again. In fact, that's a date movie. And I think that all horror movies are good date movies because you're just going to be sitting there and it's going to be singing. It's going to be dancing. It's going to be two guys who are fighting over the same girl. And then there's going to be a crazy bitch who murders people.
Oh, we have Edge of Time. Greetings.
Edge of Time.
Smells of mentholated home remedies. Greetings from the Edge of Time. Chief Judge Finity says, hey, Secret Santa is sending me a present, but it ain't a 12-inch She-Hulk.
Someday. Cross your fingers.
Ash D says, gotta go to bed, guys. Falling asleep. Have a great evening. Well, thank you, Ash D. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for being here, Ash D. It's always a pleasure.
And Chief Judge Finity says, 6 both ways sounds fun.
6 both ways is fun.
Yeah.
Only until Sunday. So you always say, I ask this question every time, and you always say, we'll do show notes off air, and we never do.
Mm.
So what's up for next week? Actually, Thursday. We're not even waiting until next week. We're doing it on Thursday.
Well, since we've been talking about Claude Rains, we could just do the Invisible Man.
I like this plan. I like this plan a lot. Let's do the Invisible Man on Thursday. What are you doing tomorrow night?
I will be on Ben's show.
Who's Ben?
Our friend from Cinema Gulp.
Yeah.
Afterwards, perhaps if there's time, I'll do a review of the 3rd episode of Penguin with Ernesto. I'll talk.
Is Batman in it?
No. Herc 130. Been listening for a while. Thought I would just kick back and enjoy the show. Thanks, Herc 130.
Thanks, Herc. In other words, I know you guys are okay at the chat, but I don't expect to be acknowledged. It's an assumption, Flyboy. It's just a joke. Oh, Finity says his Secret Santa is going to be a Warhammer 40K starter set, basic edition. Join me. I don't have. I'm strictly on digital multiplayer. I can't do camera tabletop.
Mm.
If you want to come to Canada, I'll play Warhammer. The only thing is that you're going to have to teach me how to play it and watch me paint the figures. It'll be infuriatingly interminable. So, is that it? Are we good?
I think so.
Like someone has to learn the words to like the Vincent Price part to Thriller, so that we can. Oh, you know what? I just realized I played the wrong intro today.
I didn't know we had an intro for this show.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so on our way out, join us on Thursday or next time or whenever you're catching this. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, this is the intro.
Thanks to the chat.
Oh, right. We should thank the chat. Thank heavens. It was nice to see Ashley Lynn here. Like I hadn't seen her in a while. Finity, it's always nice to be able to be nice. Thank you, Ernesto, for being rad. Lemon, pleasure. Matt G, thank you so much. Any shout outs that you want to highlight? I wanted
Lemon Pie. He was saying good night.
Yes.
Yes, thanks.
And DJ Play Nice, wicked rad.
Yes.
Daniel's Hot Topics. I'm glad he saw it.
Yeah.
I was kind of curious. I was going to ask him if he wanted to be on, but I didn't think it was something I could say all the time.
And Herc 130, thanks for being here.
Yes.
At G. Ashley Ernesto. Yeah, looks like that's it. That's Infinity.
All right.
A little bit of a shorter show tonight, but we got it done.
It's funny. It's a shorter show, even though we had to watch 2, and they were basically modern movie length.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, we'll try harder next week.
Mhm.
See you guys.